Hello, my friends. It's Miss Maria from KFL. Today is Monday, April 6th, 2020. Welcome to our first video of books from the Rainbow Magic series. I'll be reading a few to you to celebrate Fairy Festival. I'm starting with this one, called Annabelle the Drawing Fairy. It's part of the Magical Crafts Fairies series, which is part of Rainbow Magic. It was written by Daisy Meadows and published by Scholastic. This is a fun story. I like it because I bet a lot of you are drawing at home right now. Let me read you the back so you can get an idea of what the story is about. It says, "These fairies are crafty." Rainspell Island is hosting an Arts and Crafts Week. Rachel and Kirsty can't wait to try all the different creative activities. But Jack Frost has other plans. He likes making chaos more than making art. Annabelle the Drawing Fairy's pencil sharpener is missing. Without it, drawings will be ruined. Kirsty and Rachel are determined to find it as soon as possible. Find the special fairy object and help save the arts and crafts magic. That sounds like a good story. First, there's a map of Rainspell Island, including the fairy castles. That looks like a pretty neat place to spend your time. Before the book starts, there's a poem here written by Jack Frost. I'll read it to you. It says, "I'm a wonderful painter. Have you heard of me? Behold my artistic ability. With palette, brush, and paints in hand, I'll be the most famous artist in all the land. The magical crafts fairies can't stop me. I'll steal their magic, and then you'll see that everyone, no matter what the cost, will want a painting done by Jack Frost." Oh my. I hope the fairies can stop Jack Frost. I'll be reading chapters 1 and 2 to you today. Chapter 1 is called Camp Breakfast. And here's a picture of Rachel and Kirsty. Whenever there's a picture in the story, I'll make sure to show you so you can see too. Chapter 1. "I think Rainspell Island is my favorite place in the whole world," said Kirsty Tate, twirling on the spot. Her best friend, Rachel Walker, jumped up and grabbed Kirsty's hands. They spun around in a circle until they both fell down on the grass, dizzy and happy. It was spring, and the campsite meadow was full of daisies and buttercups. "The sun always shines on Rainspell Island," Rachel said, laughing. Rainspell Island was the place where Rachel and Kirsty had first become friends, and where they began their adventures with the fairies. Now they were back again with their families for Crafts Week. All week, the girls could take different classes in all sorts of arts and crafts, from painting to jewelry making. On the final day, there was going to be an exhibition with competition and prizes. Everyone who had participated in Crafts Week could enter whatever they had made. Rachel and Kirsty couldn't wait. "Breakfast," called Mrs. Walker. The girls raced back to the tent where the Walkers were staying. Mr. and Mrs. Walker sat outside the tent, cooking eggs, sausages, and home fries on their camp stove. There's their campsite. "It's a beautiful morning," said Mr. Walker. "I bet your parents wish they were camping too, Kirsty." Mr. and Mrs. Tate were staying in a local bed and breakfast, but Kirsty and Rachel had decided to have a sleepover in the tent so they wouldn't have to be separated. "So girls, which classes are you taking today?" asked Mrs. Walker. It was the second day of Crafts Week, and there were lots of crafts that the girls wanted to try. "We haven't decided yet," said Rachel, sitting down on a stool and holding out her plate for some breakfast. "What do you think, Kirsty?" Kirsty smiled and held out her own plate. "There are so many to choose from, I can't make up my mind," she said. Mr. and Mrs. Walker started to talk about an exhibition they wanted to see, and Kirsty leaned closer to her best friend. "I wonder if we'll meet another fairy today," she whispered. "I hope so," Rachel replied in a low voice. "There are still 6 magic objects to find, and we don't even know where to start looking." Here they are having breakfast together. The day before, Kayla the Pottery Fairy had whisked them off to Fairyland for the grand opening of the fairy's own Magical Crafts Week. Kirsty and Rachel had met the 7 magical crafts fairies, who showed them the magic objects they used to make sure everyone had fun doing arts and crafts. The girls quietly ate their breakfast, thinking about all the things that had happened in Fairyland the day before. While they were standing in a crowd of their fairy friends, King Oberon and Queen Titania had announced that they would be choosing the best crafts to decorate their Fairyland palace. Wow! But at that moment, Jack Frost and his goblins had thrown paint-filled balloons into the crowd, splattering the fairies with bright green paint. While everyone was distracted, Jack Frost and the goblins had stolen the magical objects from the magical crafts fairies. "I'm so glad that we managed to find Kayla's magic vase yesterday," said Kirsty quietly. "But we have to find the rest of the magic objects. Otherwise, arts and crafts will be ruined in our world and in Fairyland." Here they are, eating breakfast and talking about the fairies. "Jack Frost doesn't care about that," said Rachel. "He just wants to be the best at everything. Oh, Kirsty, we have to stop him." Jack Frost had decided that he was the greatest artist ever, and he had stolen the magic objects to make sure that no one tried to be better than him. They were hidden somewhere in the human world, so Kirsty and Rachel had offered to help the magical crafts fairies find them. Kirsty squeezed Rachel's hand. "We just have to keep an eye out for the magic objects," she said. "After all, Queen Titania always says that we should wait for the magic to come to us." Suddenly, each girl felt a hand on her shoulder. Mr. Walker leaned forward between them. "What did you say about magic?" he asked, raising his eyebrows. Kirsty and Rachel exchanged worried looks. How much had Mr. Walker heard? That's the end of Chapter 1. Here's Chapter 2, Art in the Garden. "I'm glad that you think Crafts Week is magical," said Mr. Walker with a grin. Rachel and Kirsty let out sighs of relief. He didn't realize that they were talking about the fairies after all. "We're planning to go to an exhibit this morning," he went on, handing them a Crafts Week brochure. "A local artist called Sarah Sketchley is showing a collection of paintings at her house. Why don't you come with us? She's teaching a drawing class in her garden, and you could join in." "That sounds like a fun thing to do on a sunny day," said Rachel. Kirsty nodded in agreement. So the girls hurried into the tent to pack their bags with the right equipment. They picked out 2 sketchbooks and filled their pencil cases with colored pencils, erasers, and pencil sharpeners. Then they helped Mr. and Mrs. Walker wash and dry the pans and plates from breakfast. Here they are, packing their bags. Time to go, said Mrs. Walker, checking her watch. The drawing class starts in 10 minutes. They zipped up their tent and headed across the meadow. Rachel and Kirsty raced each other to the gate, and then waited for Mr. and Mrs. Walker to catch up. We need to keep a lookout for goblins today, said Rachel. I bet Jack Frost has ordered them to hide the fairy's magic objects carefully. Mr. and Mrs. Walker joined them and led the way down the road to Sarah Sketchley's house. It was a pretty little cottage with pink roses around the door and honeysuckle trailing around the windows. The front yard had been turned into an outdoor gallery. Paintings hung from the trees and were propped up in the flower beds. Everywhere the girls looked, they saw beautiful art. Here's a picture of Sarah's garden with all the artwork. Those roses look so real, said Kirsty, gazing at a painting that dangled from an apple tree. I feel like I could reach out and touch them. Sarah Sketchley obviously draws things from her life, said Mrs. Walker, looking around at the flower-filled garden. She must be an amazing gardener as well as a talented artist. Her whole house must be an art gallery, said Rachel. She pointed to a sign painted on a piece of driftwood. More paintings this way. The arrow was pointing into the house. Should we go inside? Mr. Walker suggested. Is it all right if Kirsty and I explore a little? Rachel asked. Sarah Sketchley's garden was the size of a small park, and the girls were eager to look around. Of course, said Mr. Walker. We'll see you later. Rachel and Kirsty found that the garden was full of wonderful secrets waiting to be discovered. They saw a clear stream gurgling across the garden, over a watermill, and under an old stone bridge. They even spotted a sign pointing the way to a garden maze on the other side of the bridge. Here's the garden. That sounds fantastic, said Rachel, remembering the magical maze on Rainspell Island where they had met Fern the Green Fairy. I love mazes, Kirsty said. Should we check it out? Rachel was about to agree when she saw a group of kids following a young woman to a grassy spot near the bridge. I think that must be the drawing class, she said. We'll have to check out the maze later. Come on. They ran over to join the others and took a seat on the grass close to the bridge. The young woman was standing next to an easel, and she smiled at them. She had bright green eyes and brown curls that flowed over her shoulders. Her long skirt was decorated with a chain belt, and her feet were bare, except for a silver ankle bracelet. Welcome to my drawing class, everyone, she said in a warm, rich voice. It's wonderful to see so many kids who are interested in drawing. I'm passionate about art, and I believe that doing arts and crafts makes people feel calm and happy. So let's get started. She smiled. Please take out your pencils and drawing pads. I'm going to show you how to draw a lifelike rose. Here's Sarah teaching the drawing class. Kirsty opened her bag and put her hand inside. Then she let out a little cry of surprise. There's something in my bag, she whispered to Rachel. I felt it fluttering against my hand. Here she is, feeling inside her bag. Rachel just smiled. It wasn't something, it was someone, she said. Look! She pointed, and when Kirsty looked down, she couldn't help grinning from ear to ear. Annabelle the Drawing Fairy was smiling at them over the edge of Kirsty's bag. That's the end of Chapter 2. I can't wait to see what adventures Rachel and Kirsty have tomorrow with Annabelle the Drawing Fairy. I'll post the next video tomorrow. See you then. Bye-bye.